Welcome back to Parasocial Therapy, where we explore the lives of others through interrogative snapshots and reflective discussion. Today we're speaking to Agniv, a YouTuber and creative from northeastern India, age 20. Question 1. Who are you, and how did you get involved with the world of digital art? Agniv answers, My name is Agniv Duara, a self-taught 3D artist and the creator behind Renderides. I feel like I had one of the weirdest starting points, not necessarily unique or tragic, just different cards dealt. I vividly remember being around 11, lying on the couch with a friend after finishing Total Overdose for the 4th or 5th time. I looked at the ceiling and then to my friend and asked him, Do you ever wonder how video games are actually made? We didn't have a good internet, just 2G mobile data with a weekly cap, so my only option was to Google it. For most people, that would have been the end of it. My friend bailed in a few days, but for some reason, I was hooked. Unity was the big thing back then. I had seen the splash screen in so many games and knew I wanted to try it, but it was a few gigabytes in size, and I only had 100 megabytes of weekly data. So naturally, I emailed Unity support, asking if they could compress the file and send it to me. Agniv attaches an image here of the email exchange. It's from Agniv Duara. I am a kid of age 11, I have little knowledge of Unity 3.3.2, but I'm not capable of getting Unity 5. Will you be able to compress the size of that? I really want to use Unity 5. Me and my friends are making a survival game. We would like to use Unity 5 for that. Please kindly respond to my request. Agniv continues. They very politely declined. Who would have thought? Agniv attaches an image of Unity's email response. From Ben at Unity Technologies. Hi Agniv, thanks for the email. I'm not sure what you mean by compress the format of that. We do not compress the editor into a smaller download. Download the editor here. Let me know if you have any further problems. Kind regards, Ben. Agniv continues. Shout out to Ben, I still have that email. Never shared it publicly until now. So I turned to Blender, which was only a few megabytes. It even had a game engine back then, which I figured I could use as a stepping stone. But video tutorials were out of the question. They wouldn't load. So I relied entirely on text-based tutorials. I remember trying the old Gingerbread Man tutorial, but had no clue what I was doing, and never finished it. Eventually, I sneakily borrowed my dad's post-paid SIM to download Unity. The next bill was 30 times higher than usual, and I had to come clean. But that download changed everything. Unity was way more intuitive than Blender's game engine, and the learning resources were far more accessible. I even uploaded my first tutorial to YouTube, a UI basics guide for Unity, using my dad's SIM again, of course. Both my parents were professors, so they always encouraged me to teach what I learn, not just to help others, but because it deepens your own understanding. That mindset stuck. The following year, everything changed. India saw a massive internet revolution with the launch of Jio, provider offering free SIMs with 4 gigabytes of daily high-speed data. That 2G to 4G leap was life-changing. Suddenly I could watch YouTube, follow any tutorial, download whatever I needed. It opened a whole new world for me. I had so many ideas for games. I roped in some friends and tried forming a little team, a bunch of naive kids, planning RPGs with full GDDs, sketches, characters, weapons, stats, you name it. Most of those projects never saw the light of day, and my classmates who knew about them mocked me after every failed project. The real shift came when I joined the Discord server of a Unity creator named Saiku. He was hosting a game jam, a new concept for me. Even though the jam was eventually cancelled, I teamed up with a partner named Fred, and we went ahead with the game anyway. It was called Bound, and we worked on it for 2 years before life got in the way and we had to let it go. Still, working with someone who shared my energy and vision was invaluable. Fred built the logic and environments in Unreal. I created the assets in Blender and composed music for the game on the side. That's when I really started putting in the reps. Modeling 2 to 3 assets a day, diving deep into fundamentals, asset creation became my foundation, and it taught me more than any course ever could. Eventually, I realized I wanted to share what I was learning while I was learning it. That's how Renderides came to be. The name itself is a cringy wordplay, render for the final output, and rides for the journey. I wanted to document my path in an educational format that others could follow, especially those just one step behind me, and in return, it kept me accountable. I've gotten many comments over the years saying how my tutorials often feel like they're made by a peer, not a guru, because they are. I'm always experimenting with new formats and ideas, but it's nice to be reminded of why I started, to learn continually and bring others along for the ride. Question 2. You've always struck me as someone interested in the psychological challenges involved in content production. How important do you think it is for creators to exercise self-reflection? Agniv answers, I sometimes joke that I've studied the psychology of content creation more than my actual craft, but maybe it's just that point in the Dunning-Kruger curve. Over the past 6 years of building Renderides, I've gone through multiple stages of growth, burnout, reinvention, and rediscovery. Before that, I had experimented with all kinds of videos, gaming clips, song remixes, random uploads, none of which took off, and honestly, I'm glad they didn't. Those failures shaped my expectations from YouTube, reframing it as a sandbox instead of a stage. When I started Renderides, I fully expected it to be another failed experiment. I just wanted to document what I was learning and share the process. Then COVID hit, and suddenly the channel exploded. I'd never received that much attention, both positive and critical, and it was overwhelming. At the beginning, I wasn't overthinking anything. I made videos about the things I was learning in real time. No deep research, no scripting, just raw enthusiasm. Naturally, that imperfection came through, and people pointed it out. But I took that feedback and improved video after video. That cycle of learning and adjusting gave me momentum. My content stood out during that time because I was doing breakdowns and sharing overall context, not just step-by-steps. Around the end of my first year, I uploaded a video on staying motivated as an artist. It didn't get many views, but the comments I received made it clear that it meant something to the people who watched it. That's when I realized I wasn't just interested in the technical side of creation, I was drawn to the psychological side too. That became a recurring thread in many of my future videos, but over time, I began chasing consistency. I tried to upload at least twice a month, even though most of my videos took weeks to make. I started experimenting more with formats, and while some performed well, others didn't. Soon I was making content just to keep up, not because I had something to say. I lost my sense of creative identity. Every video had to be better than the last, or I felt like a fraud. That feeling never fully left. I wasn't used to being rewarded for my work before, and suddenly I was, and it felt like I didn't belong, like I had somehow tricked the system and would be found out. If a render didn't meet the original vision I had in my head, I'd often skip making the video entirely, but slowly I taught myself to finish things anyway, to aim for done, not perfect. While juggling school and upcoming exams, the pressure mounted. I was academically gifted, but it became impossible to balance everything. Videos took longer, and viewership began to decline. The effort wasn't matching the reward. My first break lasted 5 months. The next one lasted 10. I was completely burnt out. I didn't even create renders during this time. I had nothing left in the tank. What really killed the joy was the volatility of YouTube. One week, your video hits hundreds of thousands of views. The next, you replicate the formula and it tanks. That inconsistency messes with your head. It creates a new baseline for success, and every failure beneath it feels like a personal defect. You think you've overcome your insecurities, but all it takes is one underperforming video to resurface everything. During that 10-month break, I explored other paths: freelancing, agency work, job hunting. I moved cities, met new artists, made new friends. And oddly, that's when I started reconnecting with my creativity again, more than ever. Detached from YouTube, I was no longer obsessing over thumbnails or algorithms, which I've come to realize is just a fancy way to refer to people's shifting preferences, because it all boils down to that. When I returned, my work felt sharper, more grounded. Even though I hadn't technically leveled up, I'd just healed a part of myself that had been eroded. I also began working on one of my biggest projects ever, The Ultimate Guide to Marvelous Designer. It took an entire year from ideation to final upload. I wanted to quit so many times, but I stuck with it because I had promised myself I would. Finishing it gave me something that no viral hit ever could, a kind of self-respect, like I had proven to myself that I could walk the talk. That's one of the best antidotes to imposter syndrome I've found. Earn your own respect by following through. All of this, the burnout, the self-doubt, the recovery, has taught me that self-reflection isn't just important for creators, it's non-negotiable. You can't grow if you don't pause. Just like rest days when you're hitting the gym, you can't enjoy creating if you don't understand the mental loops you keep falling into. And it's hard to create from a place of peace or authenticity that way. And you definitely can't build a sustainable career if you never stop to ask yourself, why am I doing this? For me, self-reflection is the only way I've stayed sane in an industry that rewards machine-like consistency, punishes change, and equates numbers with worth. It's what helps me to make peace with imperfection, stay rooted in my why, and keep creating from a place that actually feels like me. It's more of a constant process than a sudden realization, similar to how I'd define creativity itself. And with all that said, I still wouldn't trade this for anything else in the world. I've come to believe that passion isn't something you're born with, it's something you build through practice. I could never be as passionate about something else, not unless I spent even more time practicing it than I've spent on this. Question 3. What is your relationship like with perfectionism? Do you struggle to cross the finish line of projects? Has experience with perfectionism contributed in any way to a new project you've been working on called the Dream Render Workshop? Agniv answers. Growing up, people always projected high expectations onto me, something I only began to notice once I was slipping in high school. I passed, but not with flying colours. When your grades have always hovered around 100%, perfection quietly becomes the norm. That mindset burrowed deep, and I still struggle with it today. The strange thing about perfectionism is this: you can pour your best into something, make it feel perfect by all standards, and still walk away dissatisfied. Worse, you'll look back at it years later and cringe. If that's the nature of growth, constantly evolving your taste and skills, then what even is perfection? Does it really exist? I say all this, but I've been guilty of hiding old videos from my channel just because they no longer meet my current standards. I've spent way longer on projects than I needed to, and what's funny is, the results often end up looking the same, even if I spent half the time on the project, within reason of course. It's classic Parkinson's law in action. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. When I'm just starting to learn something new, I've noticed my perfectionist tendencies are quieter. Maybe it's because I don't yet know what I don't know. It's easier to feel like you've done something right. But the more competent I get, the louder that voice becomes. In 3D, that shift came when I moved from asset creation to building full scenes. Suddenly, each render had to be flawless by the current standard. Projects that could have taken days would stretch into weeks, and eventually, the gaps between projects grew longer too. I've sat with this for a while now, and one simple truth keeps rising to the surface. The only thing worse than something not being perfect is not existing at all. We often tell ourselves we're planning or preparing, but that's just procrastination dressed up in productivity. The first step, even a messy one, is what creates momentum. Motivation rarely comes before action, it stacks after it. This realization made me wonder what my progress would have looked like if I had internalized this earlier. Not perfectly, just consciously. Because sometimes just knowing an idea helps you catch it in the moment and course correct. That's what ultimately led me to start working on my next big project, the Dream Render Workshop. It's an online program designed to help intermediate 3D artists turn their skills and creativity into something tangible. Not someday, not when it's perfect, now. With the support of structure, deadlines, and community. Because watching tutorials forever and never starting your own project is also a form of perfectionism. It gives you the illusion of progress, but no finished work. No self-esteem token. That's what this workshop is designed to help people earn, by taking immediate action and creating something that actually exists. It's my best attempt at solving the problem I've struggled with for years. A clear, 8-week quest to take your dream project from idea to reality with consistent feedback and a community to keep you in flow. I'm still finishing the platform as I write this, and hopefully it's done by the time this episode goes live. I guess I'm still not completely detached from the perfectionist side. Question 4. Going back to your first answer, you seem to have an early drive and curiosity. I wonder, did you ever feel like you were running from or running towards something? I know that a lot of early creatives often walk a line between excited curiosity and an existential fear for the future. Did you ever feel like game development could have been a way to escape the traditional pattern of life, to make you rich doing something you love, and to escape traditional expectations? Agniv answers, it's funny. I think I was both running from and towards something. I was the smart kid in school for the longest time, and because of that, both my parents and my school placed huge expectations on me. I used to take part in Olympiads and would almost always secure a state-level medal. I was pushed into them from class 1, all the way until class 9, if I remember correctly. It felt like I had been assigned an identity that didn't quite feel like mine, but I didn't know what else to do with it. It didn't feel like a big deal at the time, but in retrospect, I think that pressure shaped me more than I realized. I've always felt creative, but for a long time, I didn't know how to express that side of myself, or receive the validation I was quietly craving. I explored so many things: dancing, singing, building robots, and I felt most content when I was deep in a creative task. but I was still slotted into the logical academic box. I don't want to paint it all as woe is me because I've eventually been able to redefine myself on my own terms. It just took longer, and maybe my creative voice isn't as bold or refined as someone who's been painting since they were 5, but that's okay. That label, the gifted identity, might have been what I was running away from, and game development became the perfect escape. Looking back, it ticked all the boxes. It challenged me, it gave me purpose, and more importantly, it gave me something no one could easily take away. It gave me control and validation without needing to be answerable to anyone else. If Renderize hadn't picked up speed on YouTube, I probably would have stayed focused on game development, but shifting toward 3D art was the pivot I didn't know I needed. It blended the analytical and the creative in a way that kept me engaged endlessly. I could do it forever and never get bored. And the YouTube channel became the external proof and accountability I needed to keep going. Without diving too deep into personal stories, I've seen people I care about get absolutely wrecked by the academic system, and I refuse to give that system any more power. I didn't go to university after high school, like most of my peers, because I felt an intrinsic need to prove that success doesn't have to look like a degree. If I ever do pursue one, it will come from a place of abundance, not pressure. Listening to my truest instincts has never let me down. Even when things don't work out, I don't regret it, because I know I made those decisions from the most honest, intelligent part of myself available at the time. The rest, I guess we'll see. I believe in myself, and I believe in my ability to adapt. Question 5. Earlier, you succinctly described the burnout cycle of YouTube and how obsessing over metrics and proxies will mess with your head. That's something I've tried to teach people throughout my own work. It is a difficult path, and not everyone takes away the right kind of lessons, so I just want to take a moment to say that I'm proud of you for taking the time to reflect on it. With that in mind, in your own words, what would you say to your younger self, or perhaps any new creator that wants to start sharing their work online, to help them prepare for the reality of content creation? Agnev answers, First of all, thank you so much. It means a lot to hear that. You have been a huge role model to me over the years. I've adopted so many of your ideas, and I'm sure countless others have too, even if they've never said it out loud. To anyone just starting out, creating content online is a marathon, not a sprint. At first, it's thrilling. You're sharing your ideas, building momentum, getting those first comments, but that spark can get hijacked quickly by the metrics. Suddenly, views, likes, and watch time start dictating your self-worth. That's when it gets dangerous. You will absolutely have moments where you spend months on a video that barely cracks 1,000 views, and then turn around and have a 5-minute project randomly go viral. If you're doing this for validation, that whiplash will break you. Sooner or later, you'll need intrinsic motivation to keep going. And let's be honest, if you're diving in because you think content creation is the easy way out, in quotes, you are going to drown. It takes time, consistency, and above all, respect. Like any other job or craft, it demands your full attention. It is very likely that you might never be seen, and unless you're authentic and can carve out a niche you can genuinely own, the odds just get steeper. Your content is your baby until the moment you hit upload. After that, you have to detach, or it will hurt you more than it should. Here's some practical advice I wish I had sooner. Find your niche, then find a niche within that niche. Speak to one person, the one you know you can help, the one that truly needs your help. You wouldn't shout random stuff on the street to get a friend's attention, so why would you do that with your audience? If you want to build a sustainable path on your own terms, you have to step off the hamster wheel. Find a platform to speak to your audience directly, build a product or service that helps them, and get paid in return. This also shifts your focus off the vanity metrics like views and subscribers to more important ones like link clicks and conversions, the metrics that actually have a real impact on your business. A lot of artists want to ignore the business side entirely. I used to be one of them. But if you actually want to help people and thrive while doing it, you have to drop the starving artist mindset, and you definitely need to stop tearing down those who found a way to escape it. If you decide to become a YouTuber, call yourself a YouTuber. That small mindset shift is more powerful than it sounds, because the moment you name it, you take ownership of it. You start showing up differently. You give yourself permission to act like one. If you quit your job or studies to pursue content full-time, it'll feel like freedom at first, but that high fades. You'll adapt hedonically, and your baseline happiness will reset. You'll trade a 9 to 5 for a 24/7, except now you set the hours. But even on your days off, your brain's still working on the next video. So think it through. Pick a niche you genuinely enjoy. Otherwise, you won't survive the long game. And this is only a long game. Even after 6 years, I'm still learning. Many of the lessons I've shared here are things I've only recently been able to articulate, and I'm still in the process of truly applying them. Here's what I found to be true. Put something out, learn from it, iterate. Don't pressure yourself to improve with every upload. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your content is take a break. I know all of this might not be what you wanted to hear, but if you really let it sink in, it'll save you years of aimless trial and error. And here's the good news. The creator economy is shifting. The power is slowly moving to individuals and small teams. That means there's never been a better time to start, whether you want to teach, entertain, or just share your world. So be mindful of your strategy, but also just chill out and enjoy the process. That's the part that keeps you coming back. Question 6. Let's talk a bit more about the Dream Render Workshop. I can see that you've put a lot of effort into the presentation, and it seems unlike anything you've tried before. As you've already touched on, moving into new territory is essential for creative development, but it comes with its own risks. With the lessons you've learned so far, do you feel like you are better prepared for disappointment if the project doesn't meet your own expectations in the future? Agnev answers, the Dream Render Workshop is uncharted territory for me, but I genuinely believe it's the most valuable thing I've created so far. For years, I've wanted to explore the full creative spectrum, storytelling, music, sound, cinematic rhythm, but YouTube makes that hard. If I post a video about music, either it flops completely or attracts a different kind of viewer, disconnected from the core audience I want to serve. That's why this program means so much. It gives me the space to go deep, to finally speak to that one person in a structured, intentional way. The workshop is designed with that person in mind. Weekly, unlockable lessons, focused calls built around specific creative themes, asynchronous feedback, and a private community where artists can hold each other accountable. I've structured it so that if someone puts in the work, they simply can't fail. That's the whole point, to create a system that nurtures follow-through. That said, I know that offering something valuable is very different from communicating that value. And for this to work, especially the group dynamic, I need to get at least 5 people to trust me and join the first founding cohort. That's my baseline goal. I honestly don't know if that's a realistic outcome yet, but this time I've taken steps to prepare myself emotionally. I've been here before. When I created the Ultimate Guide to Marvelous Designer, I spent an entire year researching, planning, scripting, editing, even though no one asked for it. I built it because I saw the gap, and I wanted to fill it. I knew the view count wouldn't be massive. I anticipated that disconnect, but that mindset helped me shift my focus from quantity to quality, and it worked out better than I could have hoped. The video was featured by Marvelous Designer, published on 80 level, and praised by artists across different platforms, not because it went viral, but because it was impactful. That project taught me something important. If you expect soreness after a heavy workout, it doesn't surprise or discourage you, but if you're sitting still and suddenly your muscles start hurting, you panic. I've learned to treat creative risk like that. Expect the discomfort, build a process around it, and don't flinch when it arrives. Still, I'm careful not to confuse emotional preparedness with self-sabotage. There's a line between keeping your expectations in check and planting a seed of failure. That's why I focused on action, launching with a minimum viable product through a pre-sale. I've spent weeks refining the idea, the curriculum, the landing page, but not a second recording videos. I need to validate the idea first. That's what protects both my time and my energy. I've run polls, talked to my audience, and shaped this program around real data, not assumptions. And even if it fails, even if nobody joins, I'll be okay. I've journaled through every possible scenario, answered my own worst-case questions, and come out the other side feeling steady. If 5 people join, and one of them finishes their dream render, that's still a win in my book. And if no one joins, I'll use what I've learned to iterate, refine, and relaunch with even more clarity and confidence next time. Because the difference between someone anxious and someone confident isn't talent, it's information and preparation. Question 7. A commonality I've noticed when speaking to not just yourself, Agnev, but also other creators from India, is the matter of expectation. As I understand it, parental expectation is a heavy burden to carry around in Indian and Asian culture in general, so are you able to speak to this? Agnev answers, yes. Expectation is deeply woven into the Indian and broader Asian experience, and I think a lot of it comes down to this. In many Western countries, doing well enough, in quotes, is often the baseline. In India, survival isn't guaranteed, even if you do everything right. You can spend years in college only to graduate into a job market where demand is low and wages are even lower. Entry-level roles often pay below minimum wage, and labor regulations are either weak or ignored. It's not seen as unfair, it's just how things are, in quotes. That creates the perfect breeding ground for demanding expectations. Most parents do it from a place of love. They want the best for their children based on the worldview they've formed, one shaped by what they had to sacrifice. But there's also a darker side. In some families, children are seen as long-term investments, and the emotional undercurrent becomes, "We've done so much for you, now it's your job to secure our future." That expectation isn't always said directly, but it seeps into every conversation and every decision. It's why government jobs are glorified, not just for the income, but for their stability. They're reliable, safe, and come with benefits. Holding one is almost a status symbol, so is becoming a doctor or engineer. Anything outside of those boxes is seen as either reckless, lazy, or just plain meaningless. When I entered high school, you had to choose between arts, commerce, or science. I picked science out of curiosity, not because I wanted to pursue engineering or medicine, but every teacher, every classmate treated it like a binary decision, G or NEET. Those are the two big entrance exams in India, one for engineering, one for medicine. Anything else felt invisible. At the time, I resented those people for not thinking beyond the obvious, but growing older, I realized something deeper. Let's compare the traditional path, like engineering, with the untraditional path, like self-teaching 3D animation. The traditional route is clear. You know the steps, the timeline, the outcomes. You graduate, start a job with peers, get paid regularly, and climb a defined ladder. There's comfort in that structure. Families push for it, not because they're blind, but because it's a proven way to pull a bloodline out of poverty and into stability. The untraditional path is chaos. There's no roadmap. You stumble through it, often blindly, and even then success isn't guaranteed. It's like walking through a fog where only a few scattered lights show what's possible, and even those are rare. Without exposure, you can't even imagine this world exists. It's like asking someone to imagine a new color, and that's how it is for most people in India. But each generation gains more access, more exposure, and when the older generation can't or won't adapt, they paint their children's futures with their own limited palette. I was lucky. My parents are amazing, but they didn't start that way. Not entirely. Being the younger sibling, I got the benefit of watching my sister push back, challenge the pressure, and question their beliefs. By the time it was my turn, they had softened. I also had the advantage of starting early. I was still doing well in school, when this was just a hobby, so it felt like I was meeting their expectations and my own. That gradual 10-year transition gave them time to process, to reflect, and eventually to support me. There were still dinner table objections. My mum used to ask, "Are you sure this will work out?" or "What's your backup plan?" And every time, I would answer confidently. Over time, those responses became affirmations, and slowly her belief in me grew. Her questions were answered. I genuinely believe that every child knows their parents best, and if you want to change their minds, you have to speak their language. I made it a point to share every win, every tiny progress, every bit of social proof, not just once, for years, and I still do. Our parents grew up in a different world. And I know that when our time comes, and we're set in our own beliefs, we'll only be able to bend if our children express theirs with the same passion, clarity, and patience. I wish more kids would educate their parents instead of just complaining and demonizing them. Meet them where they are, speak their language, and then lead them somewhere new. I talked about this in a very old video. If you want to convince your parents of something, the first step is having unshakable belief in yourself. Everything starts with you. Then your family, then your neighborhood, then the rest of the world. That concludes our interview with Agniv. Parasocial Therapy is made possible by my patrons. If you want to support this project, you can sign up at patreon.com/CurtisHolt, and you can find more information on my website at curtisholt.online. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.